coming up, battered by wind and rain.
Other than absolutely brutal.
But don't give up, dry off, take stock and move on. You never know, the next portfolio photograph may be just round the next corner. So this is another one of my scouting missions today. I've come back up to my beloved Dartmoor National Park. And it's really windy outside, so I'm doing this introduction from sat inside the back of the van. And in fact, it's so windy the van rocks every so often, so I don't know how today's going to work out. But anyway, today's all about finding out about some new locations and finding out some places that we can go for later on in the year, maybe when the weather conditions are a bit better. But to be honest, looking outside, we've got some broken cloud, the sun's just coming up, so it's not a completely uninteresting sky, but you can never tell how it's going to work out. So let's carry on, let's get out, get sorted, and see what we can do.
Ah, crikey, I was walking along this track and I'll tell you what, I had a fantastic piece planned to camera how wonderful it was to be back out in the Dartmoor National Park, how absolutely delighted I was to be walking along heading towards the Suzanne Wood, and the fact that the Vita from mine probably didn't actually yield the results that I expected. But not to worry, because I'd found a fantastic patch of trees that were just holding on despite the weather conditions, despite the autumn had just gone. There was still some yellow in them against the red bracken and some skeletal trees in the foreground, and how I thought they made a fantastic picture. I was going to take this photograph and show and explain everything to you, and then when I'm looking around for the composition, all hell broke loose. It's been absolutely pouring it down. It's windy, it's cold, and I just had to stop for a minute and take a bit of a shelter. But I am going to take this photograph because it is actually a really good position. So I actually managed to get to the point where I got the tripod up, started to get the camera out, and then because the wind's blowing from behind me, I'm just shielding you from the wind at the moment. Because it's blowing from behind me, I was taking the full hit of that sort of wind straight into the front of the camera lens, because there was no way that I could actually have taken this photograph that I wanted to take. But I can see, looking behind you now, that the storm clouds and the squall that just came over the top of us is just actually starting to go, and the sun's coming out and the light behind me is going to lift a little bit. I just hope that I'm going to get some dark clouds, which, yes, looking behind me, I think I will. So all being well now, I can set the camera up and take this photograph, and we'll talk you through it. What more can I say other than absolutely brutal? I have actually managed just to get the image, and I sort of eventually managed to get it just between these rain showers and these squalls. I've also shot a little bit of video so that I can kind of show you the composition. So I'm hoping this is coming out okay. So up on the screen now, I'll put it up so you can just see this band of trees with these nice yellows, and some barren sort of trees in the foreground and some grasses. But the idea is to crop this so that it's in a letterbox format, because it's just all about this band of yellow with the red ferns going over in the background. I might get a slither of dark sort of moody sky in there as well. I'll just see how it comes out later on. I'm not too worried about the actual foreground or background being sharp, so I focused on the trees. I've tried shooting at about f11 and f8 as well, because I wanted to try a range of shutter speeds and just see which one works out best, because it's quite blustery, and if the wind blows and moves the trees about, I might sort of lose what I'm trying to do. So I've really got to get all this equipment in the dry now, and then move on and find somewhere a little bit less blustery and breezy, and hopefully we'll still manage to get some more photographs today.
Out in the field, I wanted to process this as a colour photograph. I feel like a bit of a fool because I talked about the yellowed leaves and the deep browns and reds. We all get it wrong sometimes. Battered by the wind and rain, I didn't make the best I could of this situation. Processing was tricky, and in the end I turned to monochrome. This image won't make the portfolio, but I am pleased I took it. Had I given up and walked away, I wouldn't have gone on to take one of the best monochrome photographs of the year.
Well, that was absolutely brutal. What can I say? I'm hoping that the photograph I just showed you was successful, really. Anyway, I've come up into the plantation out of the way. I just had to find somewhere quieter and a bit more sheltered to actually get out of the wind and the rain and see if I could dry my gear out and if I could even continue today's photography trip, which I'm pleased to say I have managed to dry things out. And we're going to carry on exploring through this plantation a little bit, just a moment. And it's quite really windy. You can probably hear it coming up in the trees. So it's a managed pine plantation. There's a number of different tracks and routes. I'm going to have a look at the map in a minute and just decide which way I'm going to go before we move off. But we need to get moving. Ruby's getting a bit cold and starting to get a bit fidgety and wants to have a bit of a skip and a run around. And I think I can probably let her off the lead in the wood a little bit, so there's no sheep or anything around, so we should be able to do that. So time to crack on and see where we're going to go. So one of the problems with managed plantations like this is they're very samey, aren't they? There's long, straight, winding roads of access tracks for vehicles to come in, and the trees are all planted very uniformly and in straight lines, and they're all the same. And it's also quite dull because where we are at the moment, although there's bright sort of high, you can see bright sunlight to my right hand side, over on the left the sun isn't high enough yet to sort of breach above the trees, so it's all quite flat and difficult to look at. And I'm always looking for something in the landscape that sort of speaks to me of what this landscape is about and what it's like. And I think I've come across the solution to that problem right now. I've been walking past a number of log piles, and it's such a big part of this sort of landscape, isn't it? When you come down here and you look at these piles of logs and everything and what you're looking at, it is part of the managed plantation. You walk through them all the time, you walk past them and pay little attention to them. Now, if they had some fantastic lighting on them, they might be a little bit more attractive, but I think I'm going to try something a little bit different and see if I can make some interest out of it, and see there's got to be something I can do which will just lift them, and I'll talk you through that in a minute. Well, I took the opportunity to have a quick cup of coffee while I was setting the camera up. So the setup that I've done is to get in really, really close to these logs and try and sort of use that texture and the logs leading into the trees in the background to actually make the picture. So this image is all about texture and leading lines and sort of just really getting in close and getting into the gritty sort of feel of woodland. Let's put this down so I can explain. I've set the camera up down reasonably low on the tripod, and we're looking along the length of these tree trunks behind me. I'm using the edges of the tree trunk in the bottom sort of like left hand corner of the frame to try and sort of get a bit of a framing in there really, and just try and use that as the bottom of the frame. And in the background we've got the dark trees, and everything in between we've got peeling bark, we've got moss growing and everything, and it's just sort of leading you into that background. The logs are also wet as well, so they've got some great sort of texture and a light sheen on them, because we haven't got direct light, but we've got enough light just to lift the whole scene. Now, because I'm in so close, I guess I'm less than a foot away from the edge of the trunks, I'm going to have to focus stack. So I'm not quite sure how I'm going to process it yet exactly, so I've zoomed out a little bit. I roughly know what the crop's going to be, but I might sort of narrow it down a bit and make it a 4/3 crop or something. But at the moment I'm trying to make it full frame, and I think this is going to be a black and white picture. I think it's going to look really good in monochrome, and if I sort of bring up the sharpness and the grittiness and really get those textures out. So let's have a look at taking those photographs. So I can probably shoot a bit of video for you actually, so you can just see what it is that I'm looking at through the viewfinder. So let's do that for you now, shall we? Okay, so there we go. So yeah, this is what I'm looking at through the viewfinder at the moment. And like I said, I'm really quite close. So I'm going to be focusing down here on this point, and then up here, and then further along the whole composition as we go into it. I haven't got quite as much tree in the background as I thought I would have, so I'm probably actually going to adjust the composition slightly again to do that. So I've zoomed out a little bit, and then maybe what I'll do in final processing is just take a little bit off the left hand side. I might even actually just bring the camera up a fraction just to see how that goes. It's a little bit difficult doing it all one-handed, but we'll give it a go. There we go, just bring that up a little bit just to get some more of those trees in the background, but that gives a nice sort of dark edge that we're moving into. So as for the actual exposure settings, I'm going to be shooting probably at, well, not probably at, I'm definitely going to be shooting at f11, and it's just a matter of getting that right shutter speed. Now it's really quite dark, but we've got to be careful not to blow those highlights out. So I think we're going to be shooting in the region of about an 1/8 to a 1/6 of a second. So we'll take a test shot at that point there, 2-second timer on, there we go, and just have a look at what we've got. Yeah, that's a little bit overexposed at the top of the frame, so I think we're probably going to have to go down from an 1/8 maybe up to a 1/10th, 13th of a second. Give that again. We can deal with the shadows later on when we get back. Yeah, there's just a little bit at the top of the frame maybe, but I think we can kind of live with it. It's right on the edge, and we'll just take it down. One down again, 15th of a second. Okay, so 15th of a second is probably going to be what we're shooting at. I'll put the final images up for you later and put those ratings on that. But I'm going to zoom in, do this do this focus stack now, and put the final picture up for you after I've done those. So once again, focus down there. Final picture for that one. Okay, hope you enjoy this photograph. Classic Brian Northmore photography. Crunchy textures, contrasting details, and getting in close to the foreground, leading you through the image. There's not much more to say. This one is a strong contender to join the portfolio. What started as a scouting mission became a battle with the elements. It just proves that you never know what you're going to find. I came away with a great monochrome photograph, a new location to come back to in the future. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.